All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to chat about the Denver Nuggets as they drop a game tonight. Not the most important game, obviously. It's a preseason game, but Denver does lose, I think, 133 to 124 in a double overtime affair. So kudos to you, fans of the Nuggets, if you're still up watching that at this hour. There was a horrible Broncos game that was also going on, so I can tell you're really got the options going for tonight if you're a Denver fan. But fortunately, there were some interesting things in this Nuggets game that we got to keep track of, that we got to hear about. Hope everybody's having a great night. Let's start, I think, by doing the starters. Let's talk about the starters here. We'll go to the bench in the second segment, and then I don't know if you see on the screen over there, Jokić ranked second by ESPN. We'll chat about that too, for sure. Unfortunately, have to talk about stuff like that because, I mean, look, when you got the best player in the world, it's kind of shocking sometimes when stuff like that happens. But we have to talk about it because it is important. So we'll talk about it in the third segment, though. Let's start with the starters, and we should probably start with the big fella himself, Nikola Jokić. He looked fantastic in this game, and it was hard not to look at what he did and look at the all-around contributions and be really happy based off of kind of where he was in the first game versus where he is in the second game. In the first game, I think he had like 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, something like that. This game, continued shooting, was kind of surprised about that, but this time he made almost every shot, and that is sort of helpful when you're Nikola Jokić. 17 points on 8 of 10 from the field in the first half, 1 of 2 from 3, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, was a +5 in his 18 minutes, and Denver definitely could have been better in that time as well. There were some things that the starters kind of had happen that weren't spectacular in general, but was good to see Nikola play this way. A nice reminder, if you will, to Nuggets fans about, hey, he is still the best player in the world, even if he's not considered it by everybody. And it's just very nice to always be able to fall back on that in these situations where Nikola just continues to do what he has to do. And the chemistry that he continues to show with the starting lineup, it is second to none in the NBA. Like, these guys, they know exactly what they're looking for. And already we saw some great plays with him and Justin Holiday. Justin Holiday kind of relocating around screens, making good plays, making good cuts, finding the defensive value that he can find. And Jokić just kind of drags everybody into that. It's very clear that what he does on a consistent basis really helps everybody around him. And it's just hard not to love what you see from the starters, especially in this one. Jamal Murray, he set the table again tonight. Was kind of surprised. 3 of 6 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. So now he's 1 of 7 from 3 in the preseason so far. But he's done everything else, I think, pretty well. 6 points, 5 assists, 3 steals. Did have 3 turnovers in this one, but part of that is just going to be the way that the Nuggets play. Part of that was, hey, he threw up a lob to Hunter Tyson, and Peyton Watson tried to intercept it, and actually, I think, turned it into, I think that was a Jamal Murray turnover because it was deemed a bad pass. But, I mean, sometimes stuff like that happens, and especially in a preseason environment. And what it just looks like to me, and this is continuing to build off of the first game, Jamal's passing is just, it's on another level from where it's been consistently. And he looks great in general. And the shots are going to go down. He'll make more threes, especially as the games matter more and more. That seems to be the key factor for Jamal, is that he will get up for these games when they start to mean something. And the preseason is about working on things, and it's not as important for him to make the threes, but I would like to see him make some more threes in one of the preseason games. That would be good to see, but it's not at the top of the priority list for obvious reasons. But 6 points, 5 assists, 3 steals in 18 minutes. Take that every day. Next, Aaron Gordon. I thought, especially in this matchup where you go against a team like the Chicago Bulls, he's matching up with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan pretty consistently. Uh, Positionally, I'm kind of surprised that he took on the DeMar DeRozan assignment and that Justin Holiday was the guy who was on, uh, he was on Patrick Williams specifically. I figured that they would switch that. And when you've got a guy like Aaron who takes on a tough assignment consistently, usually you'd want a guy like Justin Holiday be the defender against a DeMar DeRozan type. But uh, I think Aaron got the DeMar assignment tonight, and DeMar went 5 of 11 from the field, did get 8 free throw attempts and went 8 of 8 from the line for 19 points in 24 minutes. A lot of that came in the second half when Aaron didn't really play, but he did get Aaron on a couple post ups and a couple fakes here or there. Threw his got him caught on a screen. So I'm sorry. Very tired and have been talking a lot over the course of this last week. So stuttering a little bit is maybe more than usual. But Aaron still looks good. He still looks athletic. I think that when he locks in fully, this isn't going to be an issue. 6 points tonight, 3 of 4 from the field, 3 assists, 1 steal, couple turnovers. But I mean, everybody was turning the ball over tonight. The Nuggets committed 27 turnovers as a team tonight, and that's pretty tough. Braxton Key had 5, Peyton Watson had 5. We'll get to those guys in a bit. But the starters still look like the starters. They still look pretty good. Hard to really complain that much. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, perfect from the field, as KCP does. 3 assists on the night. Very, very good minutes from KCP. I thought his defense on Zach LaVine was pretty good. Zach still found ways, especially in transition, to impact the game. And he hit a couple tough shots, and sometimes stars are going to do that. But Zach LaVine, probably the second best player on the floor tonight behind Nikola. Nikola, I think, proved himself of that regard for obvious reasons, but he, like Zach LaVine, was still very dynamic in this game, and he is a guy who's going to take advantage of a defense that's not playing at full speed. And Denver wasn't playing at full speed. They were trying to execute their coverages as best as they could, but I wasn't really of the opinion that they were going super hard out there. But look, that could change. I'm not really surprised. I do think that, like, KCP in general, he's one of those guys that knows when to turn it on a little bit. Sometimes he'll get cooked by some guys, and sometimes he'll lock in. And this was one time where I thought Zach LaVine just made his shots and played pretty well. And then Justin Holiday, as I mentioned, 6 points on 2 of 4 from 3. Plus he had the 2 stocks that I want to mention. His defense and Denver's defense when KCP and Justin Holiday are out there, it is going to be so good. Like, those guys, I can already see the minutes during the regular season when those guys are playing together, and you start them in the fourth quarter. Basically, you want to lock in. You play Jamal, you play KCP, you play Justin Holiday, and you just blitz teams, and you go to town and try to turn what was a 5-point deficit into a 10-point lead in 5 minutes. And they're capable of doing that with that particular tandem. So I'm looking forward to seeing it for sure. And then there's just no reason not to continue to explore that, because Justin Holiday, I think, is going to be a trusted veteran option for this Nuggets group. And he fits in to what the Nuggets are hoping to accomplish. So hopefully that continues to manifest, and we'll just have to see whether it does. But pretty impressed with Justin Holiday through a couple games, even if the shot isn't perfect. Like, he was 1 of 4 from 3 in the first game, 2 of 4 tonight. That is 3 of 8 from 3. If he shoots 37.5% on the season, that's just fine. That's in line with his career average. And if he did that, he'd be a helpful rotation player. So we will see. But for now, let's take a break. When we come back, we will chat about the bench, probably a little bit more noteworthy. We're going to chat about Julian Strawther especially. He is a guy that everybody wants to hear about right now. But first, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. They are the local book, and I hope you bet on the Kansas City Chiefs tonight, or at least bet against the Denver Broncos offense, because That clearly happened, and that was clearly a thing that Superbook, they would have led you in the right direction on that. They know exactly what you're going for, and because they're the best odds makers in Las Vegas, and they're making sure that you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 if you use the promo code Mile High when you sign up and wager in the same day. So bet with the best and use that promo code Mile High this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. And we're back. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Thursday night. This will probably be the last podcast of the week. I've got some things going on tomorrow. I've got some things going on Saturday. But there will be a podcast on Sunday night after the Nuggets game. That'll be a 7:00 Nuggets game. Sorry, the cat is now has now made himself very available within this room. If you hear him through the mic, sorry, I forgot to close the door this time around. All right, let's talk about the bench here. Yeah, this cat is going to be very loud. I can't wait for y'all to hear him and see him here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Bench standouts. Let's talk about Julian Strawther. Another 16 points for Julian Strawther. He is a fantastic shooter. It's very clear. He was notably a plus shooter in college, but I'm not sure I fully appreciated it because sometimes if you don't see something and translate into summer league, that's not what the expectation is heading into the preseason. There are guys that show immediately that they're good shooters, and there are guys that sometimes it takes a little bit. Like he was clearly able to get off shots in summer league, but wasn't really able to hit as many of them as Hunter Tyson, for example. But Julian Strawther, another 16 points, didn't really fill up the box score in other ways, but 16 points in 20 minutes on 5 of 9 from the field and 4 of 8 from 3 is tremendous. The one shot that he attempted inside the arc was a back cut, and it was a back cut directly from Nikola Jokić, a vertical cut from the top of the key down Main Street. And that's exactly what you're looking for from a 6'7" target. And it's something that I've mentioned previously about big wings. And this was more pertaining to Peyton Watson specifically, but Julian Strawther also qualifies because if he's playing the 2 and he is shooting the ball as well as he does, and teams are pressing up on him as much as they have to, he's going to have to back cut in order to keep defenses honest and make sure they're not overplaying his shot. Because if he can do that, he's going to create open points for himself and others. Like just by being an amazing shooter and by knowing when to cut, those are the only 2 things he's going to need to do in order to be a competent Nuggets role player. Like I really do believe that. The size is clearly there to be a reasonable defender. He's not going to be a plus defender immediately or by even by any stretch of the word, but it is a very clear indication that Strawther is I think he's going to do pretty well for this Nuggets team this year. And I think that there is a very strong possibility that he is going to be a rotation guy immediately within this Nuggets group. I think if I were to predict what Michael Malone does, I'm going to say that on opening night, he will probably play Reggie Jackson, Justin Holiday, Julian Strawther, Christian Brown, and Zeke Naji. And he'll go with 3 wings, three traditional kind of 3-and-D wing types around the Reggie Jackson, Zeke Naji pick and roll and see whether that works on the opening night. That would be my expectation. I actually think that Peyton Watson is kind of playing himself away from consistent rotation minutes, and we'll talk about him in just a bit. But Julian Strawther's just been better so far. And the skill that he actually brings, I think, is more important for what the Nuggets need based off of other guys that they have. What I mean by that is Christian Brown, I think, can do a lot of the things that Nuggets fans are hoping Peyton Watson does from a defensive perspective. Christian Brown's going to be the smart positional defender. He's going to make some flash bold plays. He's going to get out in transition, and he can do a little bit of secondary ball handling on the side. And I think that Julian Strawther doesn't need to be the secondary ball handler. He just needs to space. And if you play Christian Brown and Peyton Watson together, not a ton of spacing there. So I think there's actually a very strong chance that Julian Strawther gets a rotation look. Now, it might not happen, and maybe they go with Justin Holiday as that floor spacer, and then you've got Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Justin Holiday, and that's fine. That's probably okay. It also gives you a little bit better size, but I'm at least curious. I'm at least thinking about it, and I think that Julian is going to make people pretty interested in playing him, and that is not something I expected to say at the beginning of the year. Hunter Tyson got a lot of minutes tonight. I think he played close to 30, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look at it. Yeah, 29 here. 10 points on 4 of 13, minus 10 from the field. Not a great thing from him. 5 rebounds, all 5 offensive rebounds. And this is, I think, one of the keys that I had kind of taking away from the Andre Drummond dominating rebound experience. Grace mentions it here. How could Strawther get rebounds when Andre Drummond was just eating them all up? I think that rebounds are a team sport. They're a team effort when you are switching on defense. And that's something that's just going to have to be for everybody. And clearing the defensive glass is going to be important. And Hunter Tyson did not do that tonight. He gets bodied out of the way a lot for somebody who is 6'8", 6'9". Not as strong in the core as you're probably going to want from somebody like him. But he did do a lot of other things. I don't want to bemoan it. Took a while for him to get the shot going, but he made a couple threes late. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. Did have a turnover, but the missed shots, they'll come. Like that's not something I'm really as concerned right now by. More of what I'm trying to figure out is whether he can hold up athletically. And the defensive rebounding is an indicator there. That's something that I'd be worried about. But also the being able to stay in front of guys, being able to read the floor. He has been a little bit slow on his defensive rotations. He's a guy that through a couple games, I'm noticing him being the guy to close out slow, to close out late on the weak side kickouts for 3. And he's going to have to be able to bust his butt to get out to that spot a little bit quicker. Or maybe he's not wanting to because he doesn't want to get blown by because he doesn't think he can stay in front. And that's a problem both ways. Like you need somebody who can do both, or at least like make a choice and cut off one. He's not really doing either right now. So he's had a couple of good defensive possessions, and the 3 steals and a block, obviously those are indicators that he's been active and that he's been helpful. I don't want to entirely bemoan it, but I do think that he's one of the guys that I'm looking at when I think the defense is probably not where it needs to be. Him more than Julian Strawther even, and I'm kind of surprised about that. But perhaps it's the position that they're playing, and that because Strawther's playing more of a 2-3 kind of weak side wing role, Hunter Tyson's kind of more front and center as a 3-4, and there's a lot of opportunities for those 3-4 kickouts. Peyton Watson, 5 points and 5 turnovers in 21 minutes. And he did have another 2 blocks, and I wanted to make sure to mention that in the graphic down below. But he is, I think, so minus 15 for him. And look, plus minus is a team sport. And this is single game plus minus. I'm not going to sit here and bemoan it in a preseason game. That's just not how it goes. But I do think that the team kind of struggled when he was out there for a variety of reasons. One was the turnovers. One was his own individual turnovers, 5 turnovers and 3 fouls, and did have a couple blocks, but not necessarily getting to the free throw line, not necessarily making his presence known in a correct way. Did have a couple assists, did have 4 rebounds, and he was one guy that actually got on the defensive glass a little bit, had some big physical rebounds when he had to. And he also blocked Andre Drummond at the rim, I think, if not once, then twice. So there are some flashbulb moments that are good with Peyton. But when I see a crooked minus 15 like that in a game that the Nuggets lose by 9 in double overtime, and he wasn't playing by the end of it, I at least, like, my eye kind of catches at that just a little bit, because I think teams are going to find him as a player that they can put pressure on because he's still learning, because he's still trying to figure some stuff out. And if that's the case, then Denver might have to slow play him a little bit, and they might have to go with some smaller lineups or go with some bigger lineups. Maybe this is a DeAndre Jordan plus Zeke Naji kind of matchup where, hey, you need DeAndre Jordan out there to match up with Andre Drummond, but then Zeke Naji also can help on the glass because he is the one that is not switching onto the perimeter at that point. He is just kind of playing his position. So would be interesting to track. I'd be interested to find that out, but we will see. Grace says Peyton looked really rough offensively. Wish he did less, but it didn't help that people kept giving him the ball. Yeah, like it is definitely one of those things where I know that I wanted to see Peyton get the ball more in this game. That's one of the notes that I had from last game was I wanted to see what he would do with the ball with those opportunities. Clearly, those opportunities didn't go well. Clearly, those opportunities were probably better used with a guy like Reggie Jackson, who I know I see Grace you mentioned in the next comment there. Reggie was very low volume in this one. He did hit the half court bomb, but he only took 4 shots in this one and only played 10 minutes. Had an assist, but definitely didn't feel as involved. Definitely didn't feel as central in this particular game. Was a -2 in 10 minutes, so hard to really gauge anything from that. But he wasn't on the floor when Denver was giving up a bunch of runs. He was just kind of out there and being helpful and in some good lineups and in some bad lineups. So I don't want to put too much of it on Reggie. Actually, I continue to like his minutes with DeAndre Jordan a little bit better than his minutes with Zeke Naji. For whatever reason, I don't think that Reggie and Zeke have figured each other out yet. I think that Reggie and DeAndre have figured each other out because they're just playing traditional pick and roll from 1990 on. And that to me seems like a pretty straightforward thing that Denver can go to. But Zeke is the better player than DeAndre, and they need to figure that out. Speaking of Zeke, kind of a dud performance from Zeke Naji. That's one that I mean, not necessarily set up for a whole bunch of success on a night like tonight, but 5 fouls trying to deal with the physicality of Andre Drummond. Only 14 minutes, -6 in that time. Had a couple turnovers on. Like one of them was a screening foul, I know, and then the other I think was just an offensive foul where he kind of trucked into a guy, or maybe that was Peyton on one of those possessions. I can't remember. It was one of the two. Did have a steal, did have a block, had a couple rebounds, but on a night where Andre Drummond in 14 minutes had 13 rebounds, Zeke Naji had 2 rebounds in 14 minutes, and that's just like even if Denver is switching, even if for what all I'm saying is true, that it's not all on him to have to execute on the defensive end. Like he doesn't have to be the only guy that grabs defensive rebounds. That should be a job. And actually, you know who did a pretty good job of that? Bruce Brown for one, but Jamal does a pretty good job of that when he staggers with the second unit. He tries to get involved on the defensive glass, and I think that would be pretty helpful. And Reggie tonight grabbed 0 defensive rebounds, and like I know that's I don't want to bemoan it because Jalen Pickett grabbed 0 rebounds as well. So this isn't just a Reggie thing, but I do think that this lineup that we're kind of trending towards, and that I sort of expect to be the lineup for the bench by game 10 or so of the regular season, it's going to be Jamal, Christian, Justin Holiday, maybe Aaron Gordon, maybe Michael Porter, and Zeke Naji. Like that's probably the 5 that you're going with or somewhere close to it. But Jamal will definitely be out there, and they'll find some other times with Reggie, but I'm not sure it's going to be perfect. Yeah, Nadine, I do agree with this. People seem to think that Hunter Tyson was terrible tonight, but at least he was better than the first game. No, I agree. And you want to see progress. You want to see at least a little bit of moving forward in the right direction. And he was productive. The shot just wasn't dropping, and that is still something that needs to come around eventually. But I'm a little bit more worried about some of the defensive stuff with him than I am about the offensive stuff. He'll figure that stuff out. That I'm not worried about, especially if he ever plays with Nikola. Like he'll figure it out. But Zeke struggled a little bit. By the end of the game, Braxton Key, Colin Gillespie, and Andrew Funk were out there with Hunter Tyson and Jay Huff. And I thought that Braxton, Colin, and Andrew Funk had some awesome moments. Obviously, you have the Braxton Key tip in at the buzzer to send the game to overtime in the first place. That was an impressive play, an impressive pass from Hunter, and he deserves that. Clearly the best pass by any Denver player tonight, and that includes the Broncos. That includes the Broncos for sure. Um, but yeah, like I mean, good to see Braxton Key play and at least have some good moments. Did go 4 of 11 for 10 points, so not exactly the most efficient. Missed all three of his threes and turned the ball over 5 times. So it wasn't perfect from Braxton by any stretch of the word. It actually probably wasn't a great night, but had some good moments within it. Uh, and I mentioned Colin Gillespie had a couple threes in that fourth quarter to help bring Denver back. Some really good moments there and some good setup moments there as well. Had an opportunity to win the game, I believe, right at the end of double overtime. Didn't, or not double overtime, at the end of OT. Did not drop. It's fine. Not a big deal, but was still cool to see him play well. And he got a steal and a block and was just very active and did some good things. Good stuff from Colin. And then Andrew Funk hitting some threes and doing some good stuff as a floor spacer, as a good floor spacer does. So good stuff from that trio. Probably not going to see that much more of them throughout the regular season, of course, but probably the last couple of preseason games they might play even more. And we'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll have to see what happens. All right. Tell you what, let's take another break. When we come back, we are going to chat about this Nikola Jokić ranking. Thought this was a good game from the Nuggets tonight. Not necessarily worried about it too much, but now we got to go get Matt again, and we gotta talk about Nikola when we come back. But first, this message from let's go with Sandy and Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean Drotar. This is Sandy Clough. Make sure you catch us from 2 to 4 p.m. every day on Mile High Sports, especially now, Sandy, as the Nuggets have the best chance ever to win an NBA title.
It's basically all Nuggets all the time at the present time, but we talk all sports from 2 to 4 every day.
That's right. Every team, every day, right here at Mile High Sports.
Keep forgetting that I need an updated ad there. Definitely need a little bit more, in between stuff for the podcast going forward. I'll make sure to ask Anila for that tomorrow. We're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We're going to wrap up with this. I didn't mean for this to be a ticker. Let me actually edit that real quick. Let's go here. Why was Nikola Jokić ranked second by ESPN today? I chatted with Vinny Benedetto last night. If you haven't seen that, it was a good episode. You should definitely check it out. Why Nikola was ranked second by ESPN, I'm still trying to figure out all the layers to it and what actually could have possibly led people to make that decision. The first thing that automatically comes to mind is clickbait, where you have something as egregious as that after what we just saw from both Nikola Jokić and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the playoffs this last year. You see the way that those two guys go, and it's almost like people have amnesia to what happened to Giannis back in April, because it was back in April and Jokić played in June. But I don't really get it. And we saw what Denver did to a Miami team that was scoring at will against the amazing defensive version of Giannis and the Bucks, that I figured that they would be able to hold Miami down to at least under 120 points. But no, Denver held them to like 96.5 points per game, and Milwaukee held them to like 124 per game. And yet somehow Denver is still a little bit shafted on things like that. Well, here's the actual thing to mention about this. This list was supposed to be, I think, the question that ESPN asked their panel, and I think they had several, like over 100 people that contributed to this thing, apparently. The question that was asked was, who will have the best 2023-24 season? And just kind of going back and forth between guys at the top, guys in the middle, guys at the bottom. Apparently they were asked like this player or that player kind of questions, like Jokić versus Embiid, Embiid versus Giannis, Luka versus Giannis, things like that. And they kind of pulled all those out. And then based off of those general polls, they uh, Mile High Sports is saying hi, Ryan. Thanks, Mile High Sports. Really appreciate it. Um, yeah, no, I think it's kind of surprising to see Jokic be as bothered, or not as bothered, like ESPN be as bothered by the fact that Jokic could be the best player in the world. Like, how is it possible that he could not be the unanimous choice for this? Like, he is going, like, and Nadine says it here. Like, Giannis relies on athleticism, so he'll peak earlier. And he already did. Like, he is close to the same age as Jokic. I don't want to overstate this thing, but Giannis has played a bunch of minutes in his career already. He has played 719 regular season games. He has played 23,000 regular season minutes and 2,800 playoff minutes. I think Jokic has actually played more, if I'm not mistaken, but that's neither here nor there. Actually, you know what? Let me check that. Giannis has played 2,854 playoff minutes. Jokic in his career has played 2,556. So it's not true. But look, what Jokic just did over this past playoff run should be, like, without a doubt, the best possible playoff run that we could have seen from guys like him. 600 points, 269 rebounds, 190 assists. It's the only time that those have been achieved in a playoff run at all, ever. And he's the only player in NBA history to lead their team in points, rebounds, and assists, to lead the entire NBA, and to lead all NBA categories in points, rebounds, and assists for a playoffs. And it's just shocking to see all of this evidence kind of mount up. And like I said, the team that Denver beat in the NBA Finals to win the championship was the team that eliminated Giannis and the Bucks in 5 games. I just don't know how you justify voting for Giannis in that situation. Like, what is going on? And to be clear, the panel that had, like, the 5x5 kind of forecast panel after, that features people like Kendra Andrews and Tim Bontemps and people that I respect, and Bobby Marks and folks like that. They were all basically like, we don't know. We don't know why this is a thing. Like, Jokic should definitely be the top player after what he just did. We don't know. And so there might be some covering of the ass here going on for ESPN. Like, hey, we're not going to blame the individual people here. I do think that there was probably some shenanigans that went on to create some opportunities for controversy, because the most controversial thing that people could do right now is not rank Jokic the best player in the world. Like, that is just the most controversial thing based off of what happened. You win the finals, you average a near triple-double, a near 30-point triple-double in the playoffs, and you have a 30-20-10 game in the finals, which, I'm sorry, a 30-20-10 game is better than a 50-point game. It just is. It's just more valuable than what Giannis did in Game 6 against the Suns. Like, we've already saw what Jokic did against the Suns. He averaged 35, 10, and 10. Like, it's not hard. It was never hard. So it's just insane that this is what this has come to. And it's very frustrating to be like, you cover a guy like this and you try to give people time to adjust to the new reality, and people just continue going back to where they believe is home base for them, and they can't quite fathom that Jokic could be the best player in the world somehow. And, like, look, people can have their own opinions. I'm not going to say that mine is the right opinion all the time, because I'm clearly wrong a lot of the time, as people have been loath to point out, for sure. But this is the wrong decision by ESPN. Like, I don't know how they could have possibly come to this other than, we are going to clickbait and we are going to lose credibility on purpose. That's probably it. That's probably it. And, like, they can survive that because they're ESPN and everybody's going to keep funneling back to them. And that's fine. But, like, I just could not believe it. I could not, for the life of me, understand what the reasoning was. And the reasoning that actually was borne out in the column that gave the reasoning for it was decidedly shaky. So look, it is what it is. Nuggets fans, as Grace mentions here, disrespect Twitter has been reborn. Everybody is firmly on disrespect Twitter now. It is very clear that everybody now has something that they could be mad about for Nuggets fandom. And that's going to keep going through. So we just saw what he looked like in this particular game. We've seen what it looks like when he is locked in. I don't know if he's going to be fully locked in the regular season, but based off of how he's kind of approached this training camp and this preseason to start, kind of seems like he's taken this a little bit more seriously than he did the beginning of last year. And if he puts himself into that position where these games matter and he wants to take advantage of it and he wants to continue to be the best in the world, then if he wants to be the best in the world, like if that's something that actually like drives him, I don't know if it is. I'm not going to say one way or the other because I just don't know. But if it was something and he found that extra motivation, then here's a great reason to be to put something up on your refrigerator or your bathroom mirror and be like, hey, I'm going to look at this every day and look at them ranking Giannis ahead of me. Oh my gosh. Jokic isn't going to do that, obviously, but it is kind of funny to think about him doing that because he doesn't care. But I think he's going to, like, people will probably tell him this, and then he'll next see Giannis and he'll be like, you know what? I win this matchup every time. I win this game every time. I'm always better when you play head to head. Let's go do it again. That'll be very funny. So, look, I can't wait for ESPN to not show Giannis versus Jokic in the national media games. I can't believe that they're not on national TV. I just don't know why, but they're not there. They could have branded it as the number 1 and number 2 best player in the world, but they missed because ESPN has been missing a lot. Been missing a lot lately. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what goes forward. But for now, that is the end of my rant. It was a subpar rant, I will say. I'm pretty tired right now, but look, we're going to have fun with it. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for rants in the future. I have no doubt. I will have plenty of questions about the Nuggets rotation. I'll have plenty of questions about various takes that people spout out about the Nuggets when they're losing games in November that maybe they should win. And everything's good. It's not going to be a problem. That is going to do for this episode of the Gax and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the show. I appreciate all the love and support on the podcast, as always. I will not be podcasting on Friday night. I will not be podcasting on Saturday night. But I will be back on Sunday after the Nuggets' next preseason game. And that should be a fun opportunity for us all. Who knows? Maybe Michael Porter comes back. Maybe Christian Brown comes back, and we can have something else to chat about then. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the show. Appreciate all the love and support on the podcast as always. We'll talk to you guys very soon.